from Tattva Ratnavali section of Adavya Vajra Sangra, saying that Buddhism is divided, is conceived as a one vehicle of which there is two parts. One is Hinayana or Sthabiravad, Theravada, the other is Mahayana. Those people who emphasize on Bodhisattvahood and emphasization Sanskrit and uses Sanskrit as language and talks about Dasaparamitas, they are Mahayanist. They are Paramitayanists. Therefore, Mahayana Buddhism is divided in two parts. One is Paramitayana and the other is Mantrayana. So Mantrayana is divided into three parts. It is around 6th century AD that these divisions of Mahayana start taking place. Therefore, one which started in 2nd century, 1st century BC is the Mahayana part, which emphasizes on bodhisattvas such as Avalokiteswara, Samantabhadra, and many other bodhisattvas which emerge, which I'll take you through. And there is also the emergence of celestial bodhisattvas or Buddhas. Apart from Manusi Buddha, Gautama Buddha is the 7th Manusi Buddha. That is Buddha who has taken this human form. Before him, there is Sikhi, Kanakamuni, Prapuchanda, Vishwabhu, and others. And therefore, the Gautama Buddha is regarded as 7th Manusi Buddha, and we have Asoka's inscriptions in Nigalisagar, which talks about the 3rd Manusi Buddha, Buddha Konkaman. And from 2nd century BC, 1st century BC, when Mahayana Buddhism, 1st century BC, when Mahayana Buddhism developed, we have not only the notion of Bodhisattvahood, but also the notion of celestial Buddhas as well. And therefore, with the emergence of Mahayana Buddhism in 1st century BC, we have emphasis on paramitas, we have emphasis on bodhisattvahood rather than Buddhahood or Pratyeka Buddhahood as in the early Sthabiravad or Theravada. And we have emphasis now we have now new language which is from Pali, Prakrit to Sanskrit. Therefore, according to Mahayanist, if you go to Japan, if you go to Tibet, all of them would call themselves as Mahayanist. And according to Tattva Ratnavali, whoever professes Bodhisattvahood and practices paramitas are called Paramitayani, and those who practices or emphasize on mantra rituals are called the Mantrayanist. The Mantrayanist from 6th century AD was divided into three parts according to Tattva Ratnavali 10th century text. One is Vajrayana, which emphasizes on, which believes that the final summum bonum is like diamond, impenetrable, like Nibbana, which is ineffable. Similarly, Mahasukha or Bodhichitta, which you attain and then you attain Mahasukha, this is like diamond. Therefore, it is called, it emphasizes on ritual, on utterance of mantra, and also use meditations before an image to transcend the limitations of the physical world, to reach a higher state of consciousness. This is what Vajrayana Buddhism is. Then Sahajayana Buddhism, apart from following this, also talks about the union of male and female principles. Because energy, it talks about the coming together of Karuna and Upaya Kausala, which are there in Mahayana Buddhism. Now it brings in Prajna and Upaya Kausala talk about attaining Buddhism, attaining Mahachitta or bliss, Mahasukha. So therefore, there are many new rituals which are introduced into Vajrayana Buddhism, but more in Sahajayana Buddhism, which is clearly sexual and ritual perspective, sexual in nature. These include Ganachakra rituals as part of the mandala consecrations. It also involved coming together of Yogi and Yogini as part of elevations of psychological consciousness. Then there is the third part of the Mantrayana, which is Kalachakrayana, of which Ratnagiri was an important center. According to Pito, it was from Ratnagiri that Sara and others, there are plenty of Tibetan sources which says that one of the major centers of Kalachakrayana was Ratnagiri. Ratnagiri was known as Ratnagiri Mahavihara Arya Samagra Arya Bhikkhu Sanghasya from the seals and ceilings of Ratnagiri excavations. And there are plenty of also evidence from Tibetan sources and others that talk about Ratnagiri as an important center of Kalachakrayana. Last Kalachakrayana ritual was conducted at Bodh Gaya by Dalai Lama, who is regarded as an incarnations of Avalokiteshvara in this Kalpa, Bhadra Kalpa, because after the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha, till the future Maitreya Buddha is born in the Kukrihara hill near Gaya, this period is known as Bhadrakalpa, and it is taken care of by Avalokiteshvara Padmapani, and of whose incarnation is Dalai Lama. It is believed in Tibetan by the Tibetans. Therefore, right from in Buddhist schema, as in Vajrayana Buddhism, we have a Koyan, and therefore we need to locate different aspects of Vajrayana Buddhism within the overall philosophical system of Buddhism, which include Mahayana Buddhism, which also include following Sila Samadhi Prajna of Theravada Buddhism. I only gave one instance where Ratnagiri is regarded as the center of Kalachakrayana. There are many other evidence from the Tibetan and Chinese Taiso Tripitaka. There are many Tripitakas. The Tripitaka that we know is in Pali, but there are Tripitaka in Tibetan Kangyur text. We have also Taiso Chinese Tripitaka. We have also from Mahayana period in Gandhari script in Sanskrit, we have Tripitaka, which is known as Agamas. Therefore, there are Tripitakas in different languages, and we have plenty of Chinese sources which suggest that what is this? Therefore, we have many texts which suggest that Odisha was a major center of Buddhism. Now, if you go today to Ratnagiri, Lalitgiri, and ask local people about who has founded all these great monasteries, people will say that there is a Kesari Raja which is named by the name of Basukalpa Kesari. So Basukalpa Kesari is credited. There is no. If you go to Madalapanji, there is and look at the Kesari dynasty genealogy, there is no Basukalpa Kesari. And therefore, I looked at Tibetan sources, also Taranath, Blue Annals, and in Blue Annals as well as in in Taranath's account, we have reference to Visukalpa Raja of Odisha, who is an adept in Guhya Samaja Tantra. Therefore, here is cultural memory about Vasukalpa or Visukalpa, and here is a textual counterpart. Therefore, we need to look at the text and context or cultural memory containing within it, the embedded historical consciousness that Romila Thapa talks of, which is there in the cultural memory that needs to be archived out or excavated. And Visukalpa, which is there found in reference as a king of Odisha in Tibetan sources, who is also himself an adept, like for example, Uddiyana, Padmasambhava, Lakshminkara. Similarly, he was also king. Visukalpa was a king of Odisha who was an adept in the secret esotericism of, as I told you, in secret esotericism of Buddhism. This is the second. Third evidence, if you go to Japan today, you will find that in Japanese monastery there are paintings of 8 great patriarchs of Japanese Buddhism. Buddhism, especially the the Mahayana variety with emphasis on these mantras, rituals were taken from China in the Tang period in 7th, 8th century, early 8th century by Kukai to Japan. Kukai was a follower of Amoghavajra. Along with Amoghavajra, there is another important monk whose name was Subhakara Simha. In Chinese annals, he has been described as a monk who belonged to Odisha, who studied he belonged to central India, but became the king of Odisha, and also studied in Ratnagiri monastery, according to Chinese annals. And he took a text called Mahabhairochana Sambandhi and Sarva Tathagata Tattva Sangra. These two texts are actually forms the basic kernel of both Tendai as well as Shingon Buddhism, which is a form of mantra form of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism practiced in Japan. Therefore, we have Subhakara Simha as one of the 8 patriarchs who studied in Ratnagiri and who took books of which he made commentaries, of which he made eye copies in Chinese. And from there in Han China, it went through Kukai to Japan. And today you have in Japanese monasteries 8 great patriarchs, out of which one is Subhakara Simha. And therefore, and we have also, I could have shown you the 2 texts I told you, Mahabhairochana Sambandhi as well as Sarva Tathagat Tattva Sangra. We have the earliest epigraphic evidence, inscriptional evidence from Lalitgiri Mahabhairochana Sambandhi image from chapter 6 of Mahabhairochana Sutra or Mahabhairochana Sambandhi. As I told you, we have an image of Bhairochana just after his consecration. It is called Abhisambodhi Bhairochana image. On the back slab of that image, we have in Kutila script, 8th century Kutila script, which is called also Siddhamatrika script. We have a mantra which was taken from Mahabhairochana Sutra, chapter 6. Om Sarva, Samantanam, Ham Vira, Ham, this is, I could have shown that mantra and the inscriptions. But the point that I am to make is that it is the Mantrayana form of Buddhism, of which Vajrayana is only one part. Sahajayana and Kalachakra Yana are also of the 2 strands, of which Odisha was one major center. And we have this form of Buddhism which went to China, to Japan, to Indonesia, and also went to Tibet. And therefore, we have plenty of, and this form of Buddhism, as I told you, is to be found in many sites of Odisha. Odisha has about 120 Buddhist sites. 120 Buddhist sites, and this form of Buddhism involved worshipping of deity. It is merely means Buddha. There are 8 bodhisattvas, important bodhisattvas, but there are plenty of thousands of gods of goddesses which are now, invented by Vajrayana Buddhism as part of mandala rituals, in which also there are Vishnu, there are Brahma, there are Durga, and there are Saraswati, Ganesha, which are all part of Buddhist pantheon structure that Vajrayana Buddhism developed. Therefore, we have, to say that Buddhism is only Gautama is not. There are thousands of gods and goddesses which began to appear from 5th, 6th century AD, and Odisha is perhaps the only region. And more, as I told you, it has yielded so many varieties of these deities that we need to contextualize. So Odisha, as I told you, has beginning right from the very beginning of Buddhism's journey in the form of Tapasaballika. Then we have Wanchuang and Divyavadana records which say that Asoka went to Ramagama, where he retrieved one of the relic part, after Buddha's Mahaparinirvana. Buddha's relic was divided among these tribal clans into 8 parts. One part was, stolen away, except to a Brahmana. One part was also stolen by the Nagas, and they took it to the Naga realms. Ashoka, Nibavadano, and we have also sculptural representation of Ashoka's journey to Ramagama to retrieve the relic which was taken away by the Nagas and concealed in the Naga realm. Ashoka went there according to Divyavadana, and also we have visual narrative in Sanchi of the Ashoka's visit, and there he retrieved that which was taken by the Nagas. And thereafter, what he did, he divided 8 parts into 84,000 parts. And according to Wang Chuang, Ashoka constructed 84,000 stupas in different parts of Jambudvipa or Aryadesha. And out of that, 3 were in Odisha. Wang Chuang says that one of them emanated lights, which has been identified, which has been translated as Puspagiri. But therefore, we have literary evidence of early stupa coming up. And we have archaeological evidence which suggests that Lalitgiri stupa and also Udayagiri shortly either came up in the Mauryan period or shortly after that. We have also Beglad's versions which says that on the top of Dholigiri, there is Dholi hill, there was also a stupa, and therefore along with Lalitgiri, which has yielded NBPW and a relic of Danta in the Garbha of the Mahastupa of Lalitgiri, we have also Udayagiri, which has also yielded a relic in Khondalite, which belongs to 2nd century BC based on the paleography records. Therefore, we have NBPW, we have paleographic evidence suggests that in the period of Buddha, or in the period of Ashoka, we have the earliest archaeological evidence of the emergence of stupa. The stupa might be considered as a supernatural, if you look at Kalinga Buddhi Jataka and others, it says that the word is derived from Chaitya. So when Ananda says that, you will die, what will you worship? He says that, there are 3 kinds of remembrance of me. One is Udesika, the other is Saririka, the other is Dhamma. Therefore, he talks about different kind of remembrance, out of which Saririka one is the stupas. So Saririka Chaitya is stupa, and therefore which because of Buddha's association makes it as a supernatural objects, and from the very beginning we have therefore stupa worship which emerged in India, including in Odisha. If you believe Kesathupa story, if you believe Ashoka's 84,000 and Wang Chuang's story of 3 stupas in Odisha, and the archaeological evidence, as I told you, reinforces that Odisha is one early site where Buddhism began and spread. Then we have Nagarjuna. There are also evidence of the presence of stupa from Langudi, and we have from Langudi 2nd century Yaksha, we have stupa, Suchika and others which are lying in the sets. Therefore, along with Udayagiri and possibly Ratnagiri, because Ratnagiri, according to Debalamitra, the earliest label of occupations from Ratnagiri, which yielded Pratitya Samutpada stupa from 5th century AD. There is earlier label below that according to Devalamitra. Therefore, Ratnagiri's antiquity, even though is according to Devalamitra and according to literary sources is Gupta period, but it could also go back early. Therefore, we have Udayagiri, Lalitgiri, Dholi, Langudi, which are quite early, and it grows up. By the time we come to, there are also inscriptions, and this goes on as we come on to Mahayana period. We have plenty of evidence of Pratitya Samutpada Sutta from 5th century AD. But by the time we come to 7th century AD, we have different kind of Buddhism, which we call as the Mantrayana form of Buddhism. And in Mantrayana form of Buddhism, we have deities. We have 5 Dhyani Buddhas. These Dhyani Buddhas are represented usually in the form of pentad. 5 means And we have in the stupa, in four cardinal direction, four Dhyani Buddhas, and on the top, in the center, we have another Buddha. Usually you won't find them in the top because it is all destroyed. Therefore, what we have from the stupas, we have four Buddhas in four cardinal directions. And therefore, we have Vajrayana Buddha in the center, in Sarva Tathagata Tattva Sangraha, as well as Mahavairachana Sutra, and there are many other texts which came up, like if you read Nispanna Yogavali, there are many mandala conceptualization of these deities, Vajrayana pantheons. Therefore, we have from Udaygiri, for example, the Mahasa. If you look at I could have shown Udaygiri was known as Madhavapura Mahavihara. There are seals which have been found from Udaygiri, there are two parts of Udaygiri. I could have shown you the southern part. There are a small Khondalite division which divides two parts. If you look at Udaygiri, you will find that, and from the seals and ceilings, we have references to Madhavapura Mahavihara, which is in the northern side, and then we have the early part of Udaygiri's antiquity, which is to be found where the Singhaprastha Mahavihara was found. This is one unique instance where we have one site, but two monastic seats. And I have tried to argue why is it so, but the point that a limited point that I make is that earlier, when Udaygiri emerged as a sacred site, it was on the Singhaprastha Mahavihara, which came up later, and it was around this Chaitagriha area of Udaygiri that the main area of attraction, spiritual attraction was there. But later on, when Vajrayana form of Buddhism emerged with mandala conceptualizations or mandala form of architectonics emerged, we have the Madhavapura Mahavihara which emerged. And therefore, we have a unique case. Out of these three important monasteries, even though Lalitgiri has yielded highest number of monastic centers or monastic establishment, from the seals which was found from the excavation, it is known as Chandraditya, not Mahavihara. It is only called Chandraditya Vihara Samagra Arya Bhikkhu Sanghasa, whereas Madhavapura Mahavihara and Singhaprastha Mahavihara are called Mahavihara, great monastery, along with Ratnagiri. Therefore, even though Lalitgiri contains one of the earliest representations of Vairocana at the center and other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas around it in the mandala conceptions from 7th century AD, as I told you, from the Abhishambhati Vairocana image. Therefore, from Vajrayana Buddhism, what we found that, in the Vajrayana conceptions, there are four Dhyani Buddhas, that is Amogha Siddhi, Ratna Sambhava in the south, Akshava in the east, Amitava in the west, Ratna Sambhava in the south, Amogha Siddhi in the north, and Vairocana in the center, as per Sarva Tathagata Tattva Sangraha, Mahavairocana Sutra, and all. But since the center is not there, Amogha Siddhi was replaced by Vairocana in the north. And therefore, we have many conceptions of mandala stupas which came up from 7th century AD. And in this mandala conceptualizations by the yogins, we have four Buddhas flanked by Bodhisattvas in one ring. Then after that, there will be another ring where there will be other Bodhisattvas, gods and goddesses. And the role of the yogin is to meditate, before these visualized deities. So you make a visualization of these deities which are presented in a mandala form. This mandala could be made by Muruja Pakigi Kariparante. Murujare Bibhinna Konare center Rakhe Vairocana Charita directions they will place for, it could be bronze images, or it could be like Tibetan Thanka painting, or it could be small bronze image or large images. So what the yogin needs to be, Buddhist meditator needs to do is to visualize these deities as part of from the center of the cosmos, where Vajrayana is regarded as the emanation, as the center of this cosmos. The cosmos expands, and as part of this expansion of cosmos, you need to visualize the deities who are the guardians of each of these quarters of the cosmos. Therefore, what you need to do as a deity, as a yogin, is to visualize the images and also internalize the energies of these deities. And then you go beyond the form. You go beyond the form to become formless. And then when you become formless, you realize the unity, and then you realize you become bodhicitta, you attain bodhicitta and attain mahasukha. This is the conception of Vajrayana Buddhism. Therefore, what we have, therefore, in Buddhist monasteries or in other contexts, we have these deities which has been found, and these deities, as I told you, 5 Dhyani Buddhas. It is believed that from the family of Dhyani Buddhas of Vairocana, Amogasiddhi, Ratnasambhava, Akshobha, and Amitabha. Amitabha is the head of Western Quarter, Akshobha is the head of Eastern Quarter, Northern Quarter, Amogasiddhi, Southern is Ratnasambhava, and Vairocana in the center. And then we have another ring where we have other bodhisattvas such as Samantabhadra. There are 8 major bodhisattvas: Samantabhadra, Akasagarbha, Manjusri, Maitreya, Avalokiteswara, Sarvanivarana Vishkhambin, Khati-13. These are the 8 Maitreya. These are the 8 bodhisattvas. And then we have other bodhisattvas. There are about 21 in sadhana malas. So what I have found therefore, this is the, philosophical justifications of the number of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, gods and goddesses. In Vajrayana Buddhism, out of these 5 Buddhas, there are numerous gods and goddesses which have emerged. And therefore, we have Taras, we have Rukuti, we have Parnasava. There are plenty, I could have shown some of them too. I have got 14 forms of Avalokiteswara, Lokeswara, 12 forms of Tara, 9 forms of Manjusri. We have plenty of evidence of Akasagarbha, Khati-13, who is the guardian of the ghost, who is the Amogapasa Lokeshwara is worshipped for. No, there are plenty of, it's plethora of things that is mind-boggling, like the Hindu deities of Titiskoti. Therefore, what Vajrayana Buddhism, as part of, the philosophy I told you, from form to formless. But what is the, what is the logical explanations of these emergence of that within the mandala conception, which you have series of rings from a center where the deities are given places, that provides a conceptual, platform to incorporate Brahmanical deities. If you look at, we have got Vishnu from Lalitgiri, we have got Durga, we have got Shivalinga, we have got Ganesha from different Buddhist sites. And in Buddhist schema, they are part of the mandala conceptualization of the cosmos. And therefore, these mandala conceptualizations of Vajrayana Buddhism provides a platform to integrate Brahmanical deities and provide them lower position, which I call as subordinate integration. The other explanation could be, as this is the period of Brahmanization, Hinduizations, and expansion of Puranic religions, where Brahmanical religion tried to make the religion householded, with emergence of Agamic temple at the major locus of the historical processes. And therefore, in order to compete with popular expanding Brahmanical, Puranic, Agamic religion, Buddhism had also the need to reach out to the ordinary people. Therefore, what it did, it created a pantheon structure, gave these deities instrumental functions, such as, for example, and many of them are modeled, for example, Manjushri is modeled on Kartikeya. They are worshipped for different instrumental goals. For example, Sankhanatha Manjushri is worshipped for bewitching women. Like Manasa, we have deities called Janguli, who is worshipped for snake bite. And the list is endless. Therefore, what it did, the Vajrayana Buddhism, in order to make the religion reach out to the people, to make it more upasaka oriented, what it created a pantheon structure, invented stotra, litanies, dharanis, worship manuals, kriya sangrahas, and imbued the deities with instrumental social functions. That made Vajrayana Buddhism more social, instrumental, and therefore what we see a massive spike in the expansion of Vajrayana establishment throughout Odisha from 6th, 7th century AD. This was certainly aided by the magical powers, the Siddhas. I could have shown you the pictures. Even in Avalokiteswara image, we have image of Siddhacharyas with swords, who has mastered the Astra Vidya. Therefore, we know that there are 84 Siddhas. For example, if you have listened to Parvati Bol, who is a famous Bol singer, she very often sings a mystic song of Kambalapa, who is a Siddhacharya from Odisha. Sara, Kanupa, Savaripa. There are many, and we know we have also tantric women masters. Chodagangadeva has learned many things from these tantric women masters, and therefore Yogini is just not a female partner. She was an adept, and if you read Vajrayana text, especially the biography of these Siddhacharyas, many of them had actually learned the practice of meditations from the yoginis. Therefore, Buddhist yoginis had an important place, and Buddhism occurred, and most of them were from the lower caste, and many of the yoginis were adept in Buddhist meditation practices from which yoga. Therefore, you need to have union with the yoginis. Therefore, what Vajrayana Buddhism did was to invent a plethora of deities as part of the pantheon structure, imbued them with, for example, with instrumental and social functions, by which it tried to reach out to the upasakas and the upasikas and the ordinary people. By the same, like for example, Khamba become Khambeswari as part of the Hinduization process. Buddhism also tried to incorporate the autochthonous tribal element. For example, Parna Sabari has been described as Sarva Savaranam Bhagavati. She is regarded as the Bhagavati of all Savaras. Therefore, like Hinduizations, where the autochthonous tribal religions were integrated into Hinduism as part of the Hinduization process of integrations, as Pulke has shown in his cult of Jagannath. Similarly, Buddhism also tried to incorporate these popular element, autochthonous element, into its own schema, give it a Buddhist hue, and try to, in the process, the net functional outcome of this incorporation is to make the religion instrumental and social. Therefore, what I have found out, what I would have shown you is this, plethora of deities which have been found. As I told you, 14 variety of Avalokiteswara, 12 variety of Tara. For example, Durgatarani Tara, Ashtamahavayatara, Dhanadotara, Sitatara, the end list is endless. Manjusri, Bodhisattva. I have got 9 varieties of Manjusri, 14 varieties of Avalokiteshvara, different varieties of Tara, numerous evidence of Ashtabodhisattvas, many deities, at least 230 deities that we have found, varieties of deities. Along with that, we have dharanis. Dharanis are mantras which are consecrated, which have magical potencies. And these dharanis, which are written on, plaques, ceramic plaques or stone plaques, are consecrated within the stupas. And it is believed that if you do so, you will get the benefit of 1 lakh stupa, thousands of stupas. And these dharanis, of which I have identified many categories of dharanis, which are protective spells, went out to Java. And some of the, for example, Bodhi Garbhalankara Laksha Dharani, which was found from Udayagiri, Ratnagiri, Lalitgiri, we find the same in Nalanda, we also find the same in Central Java, and also in Japan, in gold foil. So we have plenty of evidence of the circulations of the common ideas, such as mandala, such as dharani, such as mantras in the Indian Ocean. I don't say that, Ratnagiri is greater than Nalanda or Bodhgaya. But there is, or South India. Kanchipuram was an important center as well. But the point that I want to make is that there is a convergence. There is a time around 7th, 8th century AD when this Vajrayana, with its emphasis on dharani, on mandala, plethora of deity, and these 4, 5 Dhani Buddhas with Bairochana at the center and Bodhisattvas flanking them, went out to the Indian Ocean and to China and to Japan. And Odisha presents or preserves the earliest epigraphic sculptural evidence of this kind of mandala, stupa, mandala Buddhism and dharani Buddhism that went out to different parts. Why did the need decline? If it was catering to the need of, upasaka, upasika, lay worshippers, lay people, why did it decline? Because we see from 12th century AD a definite evidence of decline. Earlier, people say that because of Bhakti Pilji destroyed Nalanda, Vagara, people went away with their bag and baggages to Tibet and Nepal, and therefore Buddhism declined, attributing Islam. Or there are people who say that Vajrayana Buddhism became very corrupt because it involves sex. Sex was for us a taboo, but sex was a means of elevating oneself to a higher consciousness according to them. And as I told you, the yoginis were the great adepts in Tantrayana Buddhism. So why did it decline? One reason could be to juxtapose the way Hinduism converted the tribal land into a Hindu land caste. The process always started from below. It was from a Grama Devati, which subsequently got converted into an all India deity or a regional deity. Look at our own lifestyle. I have not seen, but look at Tarini. Tarini is a typical tribal deity worshipped by Deuri. It was unicorn or anicon. It is not a murti. My mother says that there are hardly any people who went to Tarini. It was in 15 days or 1 month that the Deuri used to go, and there is one big festival which might be occurring once or twice in a year. This is what Eastman says in the Hinduizations of tribal deities, Sakta model or Saiva model. There are 5, the process always starts from below, from people. Therefore, in the Hinduizations of this land of Savaras, which Odisha was, which is obviously symbolic. Savara is only symbolic of this process of transformation of a tribal land into a Hindu land. The process always starts from below. It is at the fourth level that the royal patronage comes in a big way. Patronage comes in a big way. The Raja identifies with the cult, make a big temple, donations, and tries to promote it. But the process is not from the top to below. It is from below to at some level, at the fourth level, as part of the five-fold processes of the Hinduizations of tribal cults, that patronage comes in, big temple emerges. There are upacharas, everyday upacharas, 16 with 16 objects, so we have therefore, here is from 7th century, after the emergence of local Rajas, Sanskrit temples, Agamic Puranas. Here is a historical process in which Hinduism emerged as part of Hinduization as a process from below. And what facilitated this? Two things facilitated. One is the agency of Brahmin, the second is the agency of temple. Temple provided the locus by which a tribal cult was converted and elevated into a sub-regional or regional level. And it is at some time, therefore, temple became the locus of expansion of agriculture through land grant. Temple became the locus of storytelling, kathas, Puranic stories. And temple became also the locus of telling stories, whereby telling stories and legends by which, for example, Tara Tarini became images, or Marjara became in Narasingha, became Narasingha. Therefore, from Khamba to Khambeswari is actually this site of temple provided the locus of this conversion. This conversion is not at the religious level alone. It is also at the level of society, polity, economy, where subsistent agriculture was transplanted by surplus agriculture, where tribes became caste, and it is where also autochthonous cult became Ma Durga or Shiva, or a Lingaraja with a heap of stone with Mali at the priest became Lingaraja. Therefore, it is all unical. It's not linga. Lingaraja is not a linga. Samaleswari is not a murti. And therefore, this is what happened. In Buddhism, this was a lack. Even though Buddhism tried to incorporate and integrate the local tribal element into the schema of Buddhism, for example, I told you Parnasavari, Amogha Pass of Lokeshwar, for example, who is regarded as the Avalokiteshwar or Bodhisattva of Ghost. The process always was from above, from the monastic center. Even though there are other, there are independent shrines. For example, we have Tara temples. In Kalasan, we have also Tara temple, independent Tara temple, as in Banpura. But largely, these innovations started and completed with monastery at the locus. And this is the design. Segments at the village level which are working towards these historical transformations of a tribal land into an Hinduized land. Whereas Buddhism always operated from even when it penetrated to Talcher, other areas where, into tribal pockets, that was the main disadvantage that Vajrayana Buddhism had in not having the ultimate say. But that doesn't mean that Buddhism declined. The second reason could be, as Jaini says, the rites de passages. There are not rites throughout the life cycles. We don't find that, unlike we have 16 sanskaras in Hinduism, we don't have that in Buddhism. And there are, Victor Turner also talks about the rites de passages. We don't have rites de passages in Buddhism. Therefore, this is one of the lag. The third could be, actually that didn't exist. around 7th, 8th century onwards, the differences between Brahmanical Puranic Hinduism and Buddhism began to wane. There are many historians who says that, because you see, for example, in Bodh Gaya, which are the most important center, Shivalingas being consecrated, we have, therefore we have plenty of evidence. Even Nalanda, for example, many say that near the main monastery there is a Shiva temple which came up. If you look at, this could have also taken place in the time. This happened in Bodh Gaya during the existence of Bodh Gaya, as a Buddhist center, Nalanda as a Buddhist center, and this could have happened. Therefore, the process of coming together of Hindu deities within the monastic complex began early, and at some point, because it was not from below that people started blurring the difference between Buddhism and Brahmanical religion. This is one argument which is given. But what we see that after 12th century or 13th century, Buddhist sites declined and it was taken over by the Saivas. Saivas took over. You know that Vajra Mahakala, which is a Buddhist deity, and there is a Shiva temple in the name of Vajra Mahakala temple, which emerges in Ratnagiri in 13th century. After the decline, the same Buddhist deity, who is part of the Buddhist schema, because of the interpenetration and overlap in the cultural common matrix of South Asian religious system, we see the same Buddhist deity becoming or got converted into a Shiva temple. Therefore, we have Vajra Mahakala, who was a Buddhist deity when Buddhist establishment of Ratnagiri was there, and after the decline, it became a Saiva temple, and with Mahakala becoming, Vajra Mahakala, a Buddhist pantheon, becoming a form of Shiva. The same also happened in Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya was taken over by the Saiva Mahantas. Saiva Mahant. Udayagiri, we see also the same happening. So therefore, Shiva temple and Shiva mathas took over many of the Buddhist sites, but Buddhism continued. Buddhism continued in subterranean form because of its, the social base, because of its teachings which actually try to project that caste is not a barrier, because of its importance given to the lower caste domanas adepta. So it continued to have adherents in the lower segment of the social hierarchy, and we see the presence of Buddhism in subterranean form. For example, modern Buddhism and its follower, N.N. was long ago talked about the presence of Buddhism among the Bauris in the Bauri Puranas of Baripada, Mayurbhanj and Baleshwar, Badsai area. We have Mahimadhar, Achyutananda Das, for example, borrowed many of, if you look at the semiotic of Achyutananda Das, Jagannath Das, Gupta Bhagavata, you see the kind of borrowals from Vajrayana Buddhism by the CHW Vaishnavas. And this continued, which appeared also in Mahimadhar. And we see the elements of Tantric Buddhism in Mahimadhar. One could say that, it is part of Sahajya Vaishnava or Achyutananda Das or Jagannath Das. But it's very difficult, as I've been emphasizing upon, it's very difficult to make this dichotomy. You cannot see South Asian cultural practices in terms of binaries. Ashoka samayare Buddhism heigala, Pushyamitra Sangha react kale, Brahmanical reaction Harsa eya kale, Sasanka eya kale, e binaries re Bharatara जिनसो को देखी हबनी से हिंदुइज्म इस्लाम हो जेते शार्प भी हो ताराचंद वाले नेशनलिस्ट हिस्टोरियन कहउछन नहीं हियर इज ए शार्प रिलीजन व्हिच इज डायरेक्टली डायमेट्रिकली अपोजिट टू हिंदुइज्म से लागि गोटे रहिला हमर तांग भितरे उल्टा जो कथा कहउछ किंतु साउथ आपण जेमि अयोध्या रे देखिबे को रेट रे मुस्लिम मानकर इन्वॉल्वमेंट अयोध्या राम टेम्पल टू आरंभ कर विभिन्न मठ ये कौन कौन जिनस दौरान से तेणु साउथ एशियन रिलीजियस एक्सपीरियंस रे आपण ए डाइकोटोमी रे जिनस को देखि पारे तो यू कैन नॉट सी इट एज ए बाइनरी गेम ऑफ 0-1 between Brahmanism, Hinduism versus Buddhism. You have to look at the cultural matrix where there is great degree of interpenetration overlap. That doesn't mean that there is no competition. There is competition and coexistence, and that may be one reason why when temple emerged as the major locus and the process was from below, Buddhism could not compete with Brahmanical religion and the line blurred between. But there are images, there are deities like as I told you. For example, Tara. Tara was incorporated and independent Tara temples existed post 12th century, 13th century. This is what is all about my presentations. I could have, had it been PowerPoint presentations, it could have been.
This is better, Umakanta. This has been better. I was really observed.
No. This has its advantages, but anyway,
but you could have seen the kind of images that we have.
The PPT could have told us a much better thing because it was visual and all.
Yes.
Anyway, sir, my sincere apologies on behalf of Kathak Heritage Walk to you and all of the other participants that we did have some disturbances which were beyond our control. We didn't know why it happened. It happened for the first time. So maybe next time onwards, we have to be careful. We have to invite our speakers selectively. Otherwise, practically some people hijacked sense and made some nuisance.
Today,
so, okay. Yes. So it's okay. I think next time we have to be careful. We'll go by an invitees list and we'll create an event or something. And yes, sir, thank you very much. As you said, the right thing out of this entire thing was absolutely enlightening. We should not, at the moment, I think that is happening, unfortunately, we should not try to divide our culture and society and religion into binaries. We should not go by the binaries because they are very complex and complicated scheme of things. They have their own schemes and they operate at their own levels. So we are trying to be simplistic and we are, I think, committing a mistake there. It's a beautiful thing if we view it as a mosaic. And of course, because you will be asked to propose a vote of thanks. But before that, I would like our participants, if you have got any specific question, it should be a brief question because we have already crossed the time limit. So try to make it brief and try to stick to the point so that sir can answer it.
Please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. Anybody wanting to ask question, I will ask you to unmute.
Sudhanshu will unmute.
Please raise your hand, not this physical hand, but Zoom hand, chemical hand.
Okay. Too much of chemistry today.
So no hand. Yes, because Das is, Asis Sadangi, please unmute.
Yes, Asis.
गोटे जिनस जानियार थिला हमरो जो डाहाक गीत थिला जहां पर बैन हेगला रथ यात्रा जो सब डाहाक गीत थिला वाज इट आल्सो अ पार्ट ऑफ वज्रयान बुद्धिज्म जस्ट लाइक हमरो चर्यापद
डाहुक गीत
ना डाहुक गीत मु तो भलो की देखिनी सेगुडा किंतु चर्चा गीत रो गुडा बहुत फिलोसॉफिकल चर्चा गीत गुडा इट इज वेरी डेंस and but I have not followed the Dahaku Gitas. Therefore, I cannot comment. I believe that Charya Gitas are very symbolic and very dense.
Yeah, very dense. Charya Gita संपर्क में गोटे कथा कहना चाहिए जे आमर ओम प्रकाश बाबू जे अच्छे आम सहित ओम प्रकाश बाबू गोटे म्यूजिक एल्बम सीडी करथिले चर्या गीत को लेकिन जो थे हरप्रसाद दास तार गीत गुड़ा को टिके बागई थिले एवं म्यूजिक देथिले ओम प्रकाश बाबू, गीत गाइथिले सुस्मिता दास। तो आपण मान जो मान इंटरेस्टेड थिबे से सेठी को सुनी पारंती। बहुत भल लागिवो मो भाबुची काइना मते भल लागितला। आउ कार किछ पचारिवार अछि?
विकास
हाँ,
प्लीज।
विकास थैंक्स
सर
विकास क्वेश्चन पचारिबे।
हाँ, क्वेश्चन गोटे अछि। क्वेश्चन हैला कि सर दिस Ratnagiri being a university, was it the only university which had which was propagating this Vajrayana, or it was also in Tamil Nadu in stretches of Kanchipuram, which I visited? I also noticed a lot of Vajrayana practices. So was there multiple places and centers, education centers like Vajrayana practices ପାଇଁ ନା ଏଇ ଖାଲି ରତ୍ନଗିରି ହିଁ ଥିଲା ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗା?
नहीं सबुआड़े थिला सर। इवन आपण अतीश हरिका को देखिबे, अतीश हरिका जाईकी सेंट्रल जागारू पाठ पढ़ी की जाइछ। तापरे सर आपण देखिबे इवन अनुराधापुर रे अभयगिरी विहार अछि। अभयगिरीटा गोटे तांत्रिक सेंटर
माने एटा श्रीलंका विषय रे कहउछन।
हाँ, अभयगिरी विहार को
अनुराधपुर
कांचीपुरम थिला, नालंदा सबुठु मेजर सेंटर थिला। किंतु आमे जा देखुचु ललितगिरी सबुठु अर्लीएस्ट हमर ए तांत्रिक बुद्धिज्म रो बहुत जिंस मिलुचे। एपिग्राफिक एविडेंस और आर्कियोलॉजिकल एविडेंस जे देखिबा आमे देखुचे ललितगिरी रे सबुठु अधिका अर्लीएस्ट एविडेंस अछि ए मंडल बुद्धिज्म रो। मु कहली जेंति अभिसंबोधि वैरोचन इमेज जोडा वैरोचन संबोधि सूत्र आछि, महावैरोचन सूत्र आछि। तेणु आमको जहाँ एपिग्राफिक आर्कियोलॉजिकल एविडेंस मिलुची ताधरु कना ता ना थिला चंद्रादित्य महाविहार, चंद्रादित्य विहार आमको जहाँ सील मिलुची। उदयगिरी रे माधवपुर विहार। किंतु कथा हला कणी आमे तिब्बतन सोर्स आउ ताइसो त्रिपिटक भल कि देखि नै। तेणु जेमिति एबे मु देखुतली गोटे जणे अछंती वैरोचन वज्र, सी दक्षिण कुशल लिखा है। जेमिति शाक्य मित्र वैरोचन शाक्य मित्र कुशलांकल लिखले, कुशल अलंकार। तो सी निजे कुशल शाक्य मित्र वैरोचन वज्र शुभकर सिंह। आमे कौन कि आमे कोठु मिलिबो सोर्स? आमको सोर्स मिलिबो चाइना रु आउ तिब्बत रु आउ नेपाल। आमे जे पर्यंत एगुडा को मास्टर करि पारनांते आमे रत्नगिरी कहीं बेसी मिल जाइए फोकस रे। आम पाखे तिब्बतन ट्रांसलेशन अच्छी, इंग्राजी ट्रांसलेशन अच्छी तार तारानाथ अकाउंट रो ब्लू एनाल्स रो। एबे खोजिला बेल को शाक्य मित्र वैरोचन वज्र हरिका तार एपर्यंत इंग्राजी ट्रांसलेशन नाही। तेणु एबे जे ताकू तेणु केमिति आपण देखि जे पर्यंत एगुडा को ट्रांसलेशन हेनी कि आमे निजे ओरिजिनल पढिनु ताले शिफ्ट करिया पड़ियो गेस्ट को एपिग्राफी और आर्कियोलॉजी रु पिकअप करिया पड़ियो। तेणु सेगुडा को देखिले आमे देखुचे कन्वर्जेंस होउची, कन्वर्जेंस ऑफ आइडियाज, साइट रो कन्वर्जेंस। नालंदा सेंट्रल जाओ से बोरबोदूर हो, मेंदूत हो, आउ जेते चंडी हो सेंट्रल जावार हो, अभयगिरी हो, कांचीपुरम हो, आपणकर बांग्लादेश रो साइट्स जतिक हो। हाँ, एगुड़ा सब गुड़े जिनस गुड़ा 7th सेंचुरी देखुचु। तेणु आम केवल रत्नगिरी केवल थिला, किंतु रत्नगिरी आम रेफरेंस किछि मिलुछि। कोड लेखा होनी चंद्रादित्य बोली, किंतु आम एपिग्राफी एविडेंस देखला बहुत मिलुछि। आर्कियोलॉजिकल एविडेंस देखला ललितगिरी बहुत मिलुछि, उदयगिरी बहुत मिलुछि।
विकास
थैंक यू सर। अगेन आउ आशीष आउथरे पचारिबे, डॉक्टर अभिषेक आचार्य अछंती से भी पचारिबे।
हाँ, अभिषेक पचारिबे। हाँ,
अभिषेक गो अहेड।
सर नमस्कार। मु अभिषेक मते शाश्वतଙ୍କ द्वारा इनविटेशन रे मिलिसला, तो मु सेति पई से सुनिया को आस्थिली। आज्ञा सुनाओ सर?
हां सुना।
अन्य माने म्यूट कर दियंतो। आशीष म्यूट कर दियो, विकास म्यूट कर दियो।
तो सर आजिर समाज रे ए तांत्रिक इयर कोन माने केमती हमें जोड़िबा, देखो आजिर आधुनिकता सहित केमती जोड़िबा, आउ यार नॉलेज केवल हमको दरकार ग्रहणीय पे ना हमें यार प्रचार प्रसार भी करबा आवश्यक, बस पीढ़ी नूतन पीढ़ी को पढ़िबा आवश्यक।
देखो मु जहाँ शुणिली ये एटा हिस्ट्री अभिषेक दिस इज हिस्ट्री व्हाट आई एम inclined to believe this is history thing a dissection of historical facts, not about any religious things. So yes, that is my first reaction as a host, but it is Umakanta Mishra to react with the question posed by Dr. Acharya. बंद कर देले कि अच्छा बंद कर देछन ओके ओके आई एम डूइंग दैट उमाकांत बाबू कहीं बंद कर देले हां खोलंतु
हला हला सर आपण मते कर देइतले नहीं आपण सुनंदु आमे आधुनिकता माने कोन देयर इज वन मेजर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ मॉडर्निटी दैट इज national identity. And national identity, the site of national identity may be nation state today, but it is created from the resources of the past. Therefore, resources of the past and identity construct. History is therefore is not about past. It is about understanding the present through the lens of the past. Therefore, history is all about politics. So therefore, since we are living in the age of modernity, and the idea of nationalism and nation state is an important idea and institutions, therefore past is a resource and past needs to be understood. The very fact that, for example, we are talking of Greater India in 1930s, here is an example of how identity could be constructed by using past as a resources. For example, Vairocana Vajra, what kind of dharanis and other evidence that we have from Central Java. But more importantly, if you look at Vajrayana Buddhism, therefore one is past as a resource for the ideology of nationalism and the institution of nation state. The second, which is more important, that Vajrayana Buddhism existed at the subterranean level. Why is it so? It is largely because of the fact that it gives an emphasis on not on hierarchy, social hierarchy. So it at least it tried at the ideological and both at the ideology and operational level to go beyond the social hierarchies of birth. Third, look at it talks about understanding the cosmos. So these are meditations, for example. Today, meditation has become a commerce in America, Tibetan or for example, Vipassana, which is largely inspired by Theravada Buddhism, but Tibetan meditation is a major. And meditation provides you the connections between mind and body and to go to the zone of silence. Therefore, that meditation has emerged, and Vajrayana Buddhism, if you look at the kind of continuity that we have from Yogacara consciousness to Vajrayana Buddhism, we see this emphasis or the centrality of meditations in Vajrayana Buddhism, which could borrow today or use today in this period.
Thank you, sir.
Because
Unmute.
yes, तमे कहीं बंद कर लो विकास.
Unmute कर दे.
तबे दीपक
perfect. Okay, thank you. I thank all the members. I thank especially Umakanta sir. I thank Sudhanshu sir also for at least handling this entire situation.
The catastrophe.
So which we are not aware of this kind of
No, we never expected. It was totally unwarranted, unexpected.
Yeah, but what I suspect is out of the share which we have in the public platforms like YouTube, where you get all these miscreants to come in and do that. But yet I would like to I appreciate Dr. Mishra saying, in without a discontinuity and in flawless manner, without the presentation, I did not want to miss a single word. I mean, it was he could have continued for next 2 hours. It would have been enjoyable listening. But however, sir, we will start to break this entire huge chapter into smaller pieces, because
Yes.
this is not 1 hour and 1.5 hours is not enough. So definitely makes it more for another round of meeting for all of us to come back, and definitely we will have a better secured platform and more eligible audience to attend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I thank you all of you. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you all the members who have attended this, and it was a excellent discussion on this initial part of Vajrayana Buddhism, and we will like to go ahead and listen to you, Dr. Mishra, again for another session. So whenever it is convenient for you.
And as okay,
Just one request, if Professor Mishra will permit and share his presentation with us, we can share it in our group. If if you are okay with it, sir. Otherwise, we can have another session someday where we can just show the videos and all.
I'll share.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, and so
So-
kind of you.
I'll
So-
take you as part of Heritage Walk. We'll go to these sites so that.
So that will be wonderful. That will be wonderful. So we are looking forward to it. And Sudhanshu, now it's
so
you.
from the host, I express my deep sorrow and anguish for the hijacking of today's program by some miscreants. And being a senior citizen, I couldn't handle Dr. Acharya. I'm sorry for that. But nevertheless, I will try to learn more how to handle this catastrophic situation next time. And we will go in a vigorous way. From all of us, I sign out. And next time we shall meet. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.
Namaskar.
Bye.
Namaskar.
Good night.